Hello and welcome to an episode of All Ditsy Female Characters Autistic Coded, Part 1. Hans Asperger, back in the day, thought that women's brains weren't neurologically complicated enough to be autistic. So let's just deconstruct that real fast. Phoebe from Friends, you're up, my gal. First of all, she has very intense special interests and doesn't really know much about anything other than them. She's a passionate musician. She's also very passionate about rights and liberties of animals specifically. She also has the kind of humor that's really difficult for the people around her to understand, and most people, honestly. There's also a sense that she doesn't necessarily act her age. She either acts extremely young or extremely old, which is something that's very consistent with an autistic trait. For example, she loves things that might seem meaningless to her group of friends who are her same age, but often offers nuggets of wisdom when everyone else seems to be stumped. Hello and welcome to another episode of All Ditsy Female Characters Autistic Coded, Part 2. Chelsea from That's a Wavin', you're up. That's a Wavin'. Chelsea is often a fan favorite because her genuinity and seemingly lack of a poker face. She's very honest and she pretty much always says exactly what she means, almost as if she doesn't know how to lie, which a lot of autistic people actually find extremely difficult because we value so deeply honesty. Also, Chelsea has a really strong sense of loyalty and justice. She's viewed by many people, including the people who are close to her, as quirky. And oftentimes, though her friends cannot understand why she does the thing that she does, they accept her for who she is and do not try to change her. They just accept it as, well, that's Chelsea. That's just what Chelsea does, which I think is great.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Every Ditsy Female Characters Autistic.
Cat Valentine of Victorious, a Nickelodeon TV show. First of all, quirky, socially inept character, check. But besides the obvious signs, she has a very obsessive personality. A lot of people on the spectrum do because we like patterns and we like having set expectations for certain experiences. And you can see that Kat's obsessions often get her in trouble, including her purple giraffe, there it is, and the famous Bibble. We can also tell that Kat takes a lot of communication literally. Like that episode when Tori kisses her boyfriend and she says, if I were you, I'd punch me in the face, and she actually punches her in the face. But the girl can't keep a secret, which is demonstrated in the episode called Opposite Day, where she accidentally tells Jade about Tori and Beck's plans to hang out. When girl tries to get popular on the slap, major hyperfocus. In an episode called The Slap Fight, I had to look it up, people, I had to look it up. Also, I have a theory about Kat's laugh. You know the one. It's actually her masking laughter. She doesn't actually know how laughter is supposed to sound. She's just trying her best to imitate what it sounds like to her. So that's my hypothesis. Leave it, I don't know. Also could have ADHD, we don't know. Hello and welcome to another episode of Every Ditsy Female Characters Autistic Coded. Elle Woods, how you doing, girl? The obvious signs. She doesn't seem to understand why people at Harvard don't like her immediately, and doesn't seem to understand why she can't fully be herself in every environment. So she just is. She also clearly values patterns because she wears pink every single day. It is essential. She also has a very strong sense of justice, which a lot of autistic people do, probably because they're so used to being overlooked. And yes, I'm choosing to ignore white feminism for this take, just bear with me. Also, hello, the hyper-focus that it must have taken for her to get into Harvard. Truly legendary. And my favorite part about Elle Woods is that people underestimate her constantly. The fact of the matter is she, like a lot of autistic people, are really great at the things that other people are not great at, and not great at the things that most neurotypical people are good at. But hey, that's the price of being awesome. Hello, and welcome to an episode of All Ditsy Female Characters Autistic Coded. Jessica Day, right here. I know, she's adorable, it's obvious, but wait, there's more. We see from the very first episode of the very first season that she's wildly empathetic, to a fault even, particularly when it comes to relationships and standing up for herself, which is, for a lot of autistic people, a trauma response. What's great though is we see her friends helping her on that journey, and when she finally does stand up for herself, we root for her. She also really doesn't understand the concept of sex appeal. I wouldn't call her asexual, nor do I think she comes off that way, but she definitely has a very specific idea of what sexiness is to her. She also never seems to actually realize when someone's hitting on her. Besides that, she's unapologetically herself, almost as if she can't help it, and her proprioception makes her extremely clumsy. Here. Special interests, crafting, and music. Also, the random songs she comes up with could be classified as stimming. It's how I stim. And lest we forget the polka dot obsession, I'm here for it. A moment in history. Hello and welcome to another episode of Every Ditsy Female Character is Autistic Coded. In the here we have Lola Bunny of Looney Tunes the show, not the Space Jam variety. That one. Lola seems really zany, but in reality she's just taking in a lot of information at once. You could also say that she skews ADHD coded or extroverted autistic. The reason why I say that is because she genuinely loves meeting new people. It's this kind of uninhibited personality where she pretty much says everything that she thinks. And people probably find her fascinating. By people I mean the Looney Tunes characters. There's also that scene where she goes out on a date with Bugs and she's emptying out her entire purse and it's just full of miscellaneous things, and I'm like, can relate. Executive functioning doesn't allow me to empty out any of my purses. Odds are that's the only purse she carries around because it's consistent, and so she just throws everything in there. Again, can relate. Lola also needs constant stimulation, which is something that tends to bother those around her. Also not very aware of her surroundings and is extremely clumsy, probably due to some proprioception. Try again. Proprioception. There's also an episode where she's going on a date with Bugs and she compliments her hair and she's like, oh, they're my ears. So honest. Another thing, and I'm not sure if this is proven by science or any kind of research, but something that I find among autistic people is that for the extroverted variety, we tend to have really exaggerated facial expressions and reactions. And I don't know if that's a common autistic thing among the extroverted types, but I know a lot that I've met, that's including myself. Lola does not seem to be very good at masking, and it seems that she's very excited about every connection that she makes, which, when you are odd, can feel really important. For her, it's to the point where it subverts the idea of masking in its entirety, and the fact that the things that she's into might seem alt or different doesn't really matter. Hello and welcome to another episode of All Ditsy Female Characters Autistic Coded. Brittany from Glee. Brittany doesn't know a ton, but the things that she does know, she's an expert on. Like when she was in that competition and she knew everything about cats. Also someone who generally seems aloof, but she actually pays attention to the tiny details. Also takes a lot of things literally. Also, it makes sense that she struggles in school due to auditory processing or any other means. Her special interests seem to be animals, and she's also really interested in how people function. Routine is her best friend. It's Brittany!